Welcome to Rich Mom, Poor Mom, where we discuss motherhood from two different perspectives. I'm Precious, a real estate professional in the St. Louis area with two lovely kids, and I'm the mom that's making ends meet in this economy.
Hey, and I'm Jamelle. I'm a Harvard PhD working in tech. I'm a mom of two, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey, let's start off with the topic of the day, giving money to extended family or friends. This is a hard one for me. This was a lesson that I had to learn over time. And what I've learned is I'm not the type of person that can do it.
You
It's
can't
not
do
for
what?
me.
You don't give money away?
I try not to. I do not know how to set boundaries. And in the end, it just ends up either somebody not paying me back and me feeling that resentment and having to say, okay, do I want to feel that way towards this person? Or do I want to charge it to the game and continue on with our relationship as if nothing happens? And I've tried both. And what works best for me is continuing on like nothing happened.
Wait,
And unfortunately, yes.
wait.
Yes.
So you saying if somebody owes you money, you just gonna move on? Like they don't owe you money?
No, so that's what I did.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that was the only way for me to be able to not feel resentment towards that person and carry on with this relationship with love and without looking at them a certain way, in a negative way. Without having a I am not able to have a conversation with you without my chest hurting, because I know you owe me money and you're not saying nothing and I'm not saying nothing. And so it's like, okay, I don't want to feel that way towards this person. So I just got to charge it. And I've decided at some point I'm not going to do that anymore. So that just means that I cannot lend I don't have it. I ain't got no ends. When you think of me, I'm broke. I ain't got it. I ain't got no ends, Gina.
Precious. Okay, so you're saying that you don't give money to extended family or friends. So is there anybody in the world that owes you money right now?
You know what? I don't even know if I can answer that question. There's nobody that comes to mind. But I think that kind of proves the point to myself. I haven't thought about it.
Right.
I haven't thought about it in so long. I know that I have lent out money, but I cannot think of anybody who owes me money right now. And honestly, I don't know if it's because they just don't owe me money. I don't know if they paid me back or if I just charged it to the game.
Huh.
But I tell you what I do know. I love all my people, all my family, all my friends. I feel real good about everybody in my circle.
Love your
So-
family.
So I don't know if they owe me money or not. Actually, yeah, I don't know if they owe me money or not, but
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you owe money to anybody?
I hope not. I don't know. I'm not okay, so with me, I know that there are times when I have borrowed money and it was always the first thing that I did when some money hit my hand, I had to pay it back. I could not, there is no, I am forever broke if I owe people. And so as soon as I get the money in my hand, I'm paying it back. I cannot imagine me still owing anybody. If anybody is listening to this episode and I owe you money, please let me know. Please let me know, because if you ask me, hey, I'm sorry to that man. I ain't got nothing for you. I don't. Hey,
You don't know if you, but listen to me, Precious. You saying you like to move on, but I know you ain't gonna say it, so I'm gonna say it for you. If you listening to this episode and you owe Precious some money, okay, don't make it awkward and do not take advantage of the fact that she is not going to address this. She has 2 kids and a whole family. Send her money.
send me if you are listening to the. But that's so crazy. I never even would have thought to say that because
Right.
I don't think like that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you owe me money, send me my money.
Precious, please.
Send if you are listening. I'm sorry.
Please.
If you are listening to this episode and you owe me money, please just send it.
Just send it.
Okay? And I bet you already got the Cash App, you got the Zelle, you got the Venmo. You already got whatever you need because I'm sure that's how I sent it.
Right.
Go and send it back. But
Okay.
I don't know if anybody owes me anything, so I feel good
Okay.
about that.
Okay. I mean, Precious, you bringing up a point, which is that this topic of giving money to extended friends and family can really make or break relationships. I'm going to add that there are some cultural considerations here. So
Oh,
let's
yeah.
get into a little bit of data on this. From
Okay.
NPR, immigrants from all over the world come here to the US, work, and send money back to their home countries. That money makes a big difference to their families and communities back home, as well as global economies. So there is this additional component, I think, for many immigrants and children of immigrants in the US, where there is an expectation that they do send money. Sometimes it's a situation where they're borrowing, but I think a lot of times the expectation is that they are giving, right? So we'll
Mm-hmm.
get into that. The second data point I want to add this week is that according to Lending Tree, bringing it back to the US, about 50% of Americans have loaned money to friends or family. That statistic really, now that I'm processing it out loud, doesn't mean a lot because 50% means half of the people loan money and the other half don't. So maybe we will get to touch on this balance between having boundaries and then also opening up and being more giving to family.
Mm-hmm.
The third statistic that we'll talk about this week is also according to Lending Tree, payment apps like Cash App, Venmo, etc. have made it supposedly less awkward for people to ask to borrow money. And 1 in 6 family loans, unfortunately, has negatively impacted the relationship. So, on the
I
one
see that.
hand, you have a situation where borrowing money is easier than ever. You don't even have to look somebody in the eyes. You can just text them. And I've seen this especially with kids because I'm an auntie. I have had teenagers, etc., like different kids in the family literally text me randomly. Kids don't ask you how you doing. They don't ask you nothing. They say, "Hey, TT, can you send me $10? Da 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 da." And there's something interesting about the difference because when I was a kid, if I wanted to ask a grown up for money, I had to go physically contact them or call them, which would have required some consideration for what does it mean to talk to another person. When you
Mm-hmm.
remove that, it's any man's game, right?
Yeah. And in some instances, that would stop somebody from having to from even asking
Yes.
because people will think, okay, have I spoken to this person in so long? How bad do I actually need this money? How much money am I actually asking for?
Right.
Like if you had the nerve to go up and ask this person for some money, you better make sure that you are in a good place.
Wait, that's a good
Don't.
point.
Yes, it's like, well, maybe I know that personally I overthink. I
Mm.
overthink things. Some people just got the nerve to come up. They know they did you dirty. They know they still owe you $500, but they will come up and ask you for another two with
Wow.
no shame. But I I don't know. How do you feel about that? I feel like I overthink things. So if I'm asking somebody for some money, then I I don't know. Like I don't like
Yeah.
I there's a checklist that
Yeah.
needs to be reviewed before you are even going to them.
So, I mean, that is a great, I mean, so on my end, I tend to be in a position where other people are asking me to borrow money. And I would love,
Okay.
Precious, I would love for people to sit and do some type of analysis like you're talking about before they ask. So to be able to say, let me think about the first point on the checklist. Is this an appropriate situation to ask for money? The second thing is, what is the context with which I'm asking, right? This is this too much to ask? Da 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 da. Those kind of things. Have I checked in with this person? Do we even have that type of relationship where it's appropriate for them to give me this kind of money?
Oh my
You know what
goodness.
I'm saying? I will say
Yes.
I don't think most people are doing that kind of thinking, and partly from this, you know, what we were just talking about having apps, having just text messages. I think because communication is so quick, people don't really feel like they have to think. Sometimes I kind of get the impression that this person just sent it real quick out of like almost fear and then just put their phone away and just thought, well, if she say yes, maybe. If she say no. And I think that actually makes it really uncomfortable for me. And so I have set some very intense boundaries with my own family, which we can get into. But one of the main things that I think surprises people is I actually have a spreadsheet with a checklist on what constitutes an emergency. Yes.
Wait. I thought you were about to say a spreadsheet counting all the money that somebody has asked from you.
We also have that. But that I will say that
Wow.
comes from my husband because it got so it got to the point where we were giving out, I mean, upwards of $20,000 a year. And at that point, my husband sat me down and was like, "Have are you at least aware of how much money you're sending your family?" And so, yes, he has a tracking system for the ask and for the give. And I think what I had to do, what I've learned is I think my mom said it best. She said, "Don't let someone else's procrastination be your emergency," which I think
Mm-hmm.
means what I've learned is that everything is not an emergency. So people used to call me for anything you could imagine. So and so went to jail. We need bond money. Uh, oh man, my car broke down. Like, can you help me in this situation? So the thing that was a struggle for me, especially in my early 20s, when I was when I just was just starting out making money,
Mm-hmm.
I interpreted their question as thinking that what you said, that they had already done all this analysis. So I'm thinking they done exhausted all their options. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't give it to them, they will not have it. Like
This
if
is the
they have a
last
light
option.
bill to pay, if I don't send them this money right now, they light's gonna be off. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
was interpreting it when I was younger. And what I've learned is that that's not usually true. One, people will figure things out, but two, I had to decide for myself and my own family what is an emergency. And so I have like a list, a checklist. So when people call me, I pull up this checklist and I start to like see, I'm listening to their scenario and I'm trying to see if they meet the requirements to get some money. And I have two separate categories. So one is people who want to borrow, and one is people who are just asking. And most people are going into the give category because I know for a fact they are never going to pay me back. And so
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
going to give it if I need it back. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably two people in my entire family who can actually borrow money from me because I know that when they say borrow, they mean borrow.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, it's a gift.
Wow. Okay, so is that just your charge? Like you just charging it to the game if so and so asks you?
So now, because this could be such a financial strain. Now, me and my husband have a budget for the year for how much we'll
Mm.
give out, and when we reach the maximum, it's just a no, unfortunately.
Oh.
And the
You
only
know what?
exception is extreme cases for children directly in my family. So if my
Mm-hmm.
nieces or nephews are going to be in some sort of extreme situation, then I will make an exception. But I basically try to come in under the budget because I know that at some point a kid is going to need something. So it's sort of buffered in at this point.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a nice strategy.
It
That
took
sounds
a
like it took some
while.
time.
It took a
Yeah.
while. It took a lot of phone calls where I would, like I said, I would hear the situation. And when people hit you up, I mean, it really feels like, oh my goodness. It's like I have to make this decision right now. Like I have 10 seconds to decide if I'm going to help this person in this very extreme situation, which for me is a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
that's why I have to have the list because I can't usually think straight when someone's calling me. And if I'm being honest, I think like for me, most of my close family, they have great intentions. We all love each other. It's all love. There are a couple of people who I have experienced will take advantage of that. Like they know that I'm kind of freaking out when they call me and they'll just start throwing all this like information at me and be like, so just help right now. Like just send it to me right now. And that urgency makes me so uncomfortable that I always say like, give me a second. I think being married is also useful because I got to be like,
Oh
I got to run
yeah.
it by him.
Exactly.
And that gives me a little bit of time to think through, whoa, 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 whoa. Like one of the biggest thing is that we had to set a hard line that we're not going to help anyone pay bills. And this was hard. But I explained it to people. I explained it to people like this. There's a difference between you living above your means or you not appropriately budgeting based on your income and you being in an unforeseen emergency. So if it's the
Okay.
case that every single month you have a hard time paying your light bill and your rent, something in your life more fundamental needs to change. Because me just helping you out this month is not going to change that you're in this situation next month. And
Exactly.
so, what I will offer instead is a financial consultation. Most people do not want this, they don't want you in their business. I get it. But I will offer because I have the background I have, right? I studied applied mathematics. My husband studies project management, where he's extremely skilled in spreadsheets and planning, right? I have had a couple people in my family take me up on this. And instead of me handing them money, we actually set up meetings with them to come up with a better financial plan that allows them to move better month to month. There's unfortunately a couple people who they're not interested in that for whatever reason, good or bad. They don't want any feedback on their life. They don't want to know what I think about how they got into this situation. And at that point, I have to set a hard line and say, if it's too much for me to be in your business to tell you how I think you need to not get in this situation, then it's too much for you to be asking me for money to help in the situation. You can't, on the one hand, benefit from my like me giving you financial support, but on the other hand, refuse any type of criticism or feedback that I'm giving you. The two don't go together. So that's been a big deal for us.
Yeah, I think if you're willing to accept like money that's going to help in the now, you need to be willing to accept some kind of solution
Yeah.
of longevity
Yeah.
because when you come back again, it's like, okay, well, how many times are
Right.
we doing this? I'm not comfortable with this anymore. And you have to know that at some point, if you are asking for the same thing over and over, at what point do you expect them at what point do you expect the circumstances to change for you? And at what point for me do you expect me to say I can't do this anymore? Is it when my runs dry?
Right.
You know? Um so yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
deep.
And
That's
honestly, it's part of the inspiration for this podcast because it was actually our grandmother who told me once. So she came and saw how I was living when I was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And remember, I told you we had this like free housing situation. So we were residential advisors. I was a graduate student and I was not making a lot of money, but I did get free housing and free food, which then that was like super valuable. And I remember being able to save and just like put ourselves in a little bit of a good financial situation simply because of our living arrangements. And my grandmother, I was talking to her one day and finally kind of broke down the details of how we were living. And at some point, people came to visit me in Cambridge and they came and like jokingly, like, my family is from the Midwest where space is a little bit vast. Like we have cornfields, we have flatlands, like um, people live in larger spaces. And fast forward that to Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I was living, where people are living in like very tiny apartments. So it was like a funny thing to my family. People were like, "Is this tiny house living? Like, what are you? How how are you living like this?" And it was like funny, but it was also kind of this. It was a reflection of the disconnect where on paper I was being super financially responsible, even though I was actually only making like $36,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
But I had finessed myself into this free housing situation, so I was able to save, which meant people were used to calling me and saying, "Oh, this is the rich auntie. She has money. She's gonna help us." And so when they actually visited me and saw, "Oh, she's living in a tiny house," like our
And
apartment,
squalor.
we had 2 bedrooms, and I think it might have been 450 square feet. So
Oh wow.
it was like a tiny house. Like I don't know why they call it a 2 bedroom. Technically there were two doors, but like it was city living, almost like New York. Think New York City vibes. Like almost like people joke that it's like a closet. But we're living like this. We're really stressed. We're working really hard every day. But I think being that far away from my family, people kind of just like didn't have a conception of this reality of us being really hard workers and like really sacrificing for the money we had. So when you call me, if you call me and ask me for $200, all you know is that I have it, but you're not thinking
Yeah.
about how much I had to work to get it. And so that's really like, I think gets at your original point, which is, are people processing it? Are people really able to think about, this is a lot to ask? And what I learned with my family is on both sides, we've all had to kind of learn each other as adults. And people have had to learn that even though I may have a certain salary or I may have access to certain resources, I am still under a lot of stress and I'm still managing a lot. And so it is still a lot to ask, basically.
Mm-hmm. Jamel, do you have a rich mom, poor mom story to share for this week?
Yes, I will share very briefly because I have been talking for a while. But basically, when I graduated from undergrad, my family came to visit me and attend my graduation. And what I didn't know when this was happening in real time was that one of my family members took out a loan to come and visit and to travel to my college graduation and attend and have money to have a hotel that weekend and things like that. And that loan they took out was quite predatory. So I don't know if you're familiar with payday loans.
No.
So payday loans are personal loans that tend to be marketed to low income individuals. And the reason why I call them predatory is because they end up having extremely high interest rates. And I'm talking in the levels of 100 to 200% interest.
Oh.
And the thinking behind a payday loan is that you get a loan until you get paid. So it's a payday loan because it's like something that's supposed to hold you over until you get paid. Unfortunately, they take advantage of people who are living paycheck to paycheck and they know they're not going to be able to repay it. So they make people who give out these loans make a lot of money from the interest. And
Right.
so, long story short, is this family member who I love dearly had gotten into a very, very problematic and sad financial situation. Partially, at least I felt at the time, partially because of me, because they had come to see me and they had to take out this loan. And so I didn't find out about this until much later in the year. So graduation is around May. Let's say I found out around November. And that means so many months have passed, so much interest that I think the original loan they took out may have been $1,000. And by the time I found out about the loan and their wages were being garnished, things had gotten really bad. Like this person was in an extreme situation. Um, the loan had gotten up to somewhere around 14, 15,000.
From 1,000?
Yeah,
That's why does that sound illegal?
it should be, right?
That's a
And
scam.
yes, so that's why I call it predatory. But basically, and I'm remembering in real time, so it could have been more like 1,500 that they borrowed, but it was definitely in that range. and it had increased at a level that I had never seen. I had not seen anything like this. But fast forward, I find out, later around November, and obviously I'm young. This was like my first job. My now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he had been in his job for longer than me because he graduated a year before me. Long story short is my husband had been in his job. He had been doing really well, and they had let him know he was doing so well that he was going to get a bonus. This is his first time getting a bonus, my first time ever hearing about a bonus, right? I didn't even know anything about compensation at this point. And so it's like for us, we thought it was fortunate timing, but it was also just like we're young, we didn't really know what we were doing. He says, "Oh my goodness, baby, look at how much I'm about to get," and he was like, he shows me the screen, and it says like $15,000. This is after taxes.
This is a bonus, you say?
Yes.
Okay. I for okay. I I'm sorry. I'm at a loss for words. First, that's like some people's whole income.
Exactly. And we were young. We didn't have no kids yet. You know what I'm saying? We weren't married yet. We were in a very strong relationship though. As you can tell by the next part of this story. So I looked at him and I was like, "You remember this family member who came to my graduation?" He's like, "Of course. We ride for this person. This is our close. We love this person." I said, "Unfortunately,
Ain't no way.
this trip to my graduation has resulted in her being in a very, very difficult situation, and I don't know what to do." And I had posed
Them,
it to him just like this. And he was like, "Well, how much does she need?" And I was like,
they.
$15,000.
You said your boyfriend?
That was my boyfriend, yeah.
He got a brother.
Precious. Fast forward. Okay. It was not a long conversation. I think we just kind of sat for a second. And he was like, let's just take a second to just rejoice in the bonus because we were really processing that. Like, this is such a big deal for us. This is his first bonus.
Yeah.
And then I think it might have been like an hour. He was like, "Go ahead and send it to her." And I was like, "Okay." So we paid that loan for her for 15,000, and that was the start, I would
Wow.
say, of our very complicated relationship with giving money to my family.
That is that's a lot. Um, and this is the man that you married, right?
Yeah.
Amen. that's that's wow. So, okay, I don't even know where to start with that. That is so how did he feel about that?
Yeah, so I mean, this kind of relates to what we were talking about around cultural differences. So because he is
Oh,
African, we both have he does have, maybe even more so than me, a feeling of familial obligation. And I think we have such a trust between us that for in his mind, and this is true for both of us today, if I'm asking him or I'm mentioning it as an option for something that we need to step in for, then he trusts my judgment and he's like, "This is a big deal. Like, this person is really in a situation and we really love this person." And so it's just kind of like it wasn't even a question. The other thing is, I don't think either of us, and this is just me looking back, right? This had to be like 10 years ago at this point. I guess not that long, but it was a while ago. And we
mm-hmm.
were both pretty young. And I think now looking back, I just think we did not have a long-term plan in terms of, like you mentioned, like where this was going to end and how we might navigate this with our own family. So one of the
Yeah.
things I learned later from a mentor was you actually don't have $15,000 to give. Like, if I could talk back to that person, my younger self, my
Mm-hmm.
mentors now, that I'm very grateful for, they've taught me that it's not just do I have this money in my account, it's also about my own financial goals. So I didn't own a house, right? I didn't have some huge investment account. I didn't have some huge account for my wedding, right? We hadn't got married yet. I didn't have some savings account for my future house. Like, I didn't have any of that. And I just didn't know enough to know that I shouldn't be thinking about it as just this is when someone asks me for money, it's not just a question of is this money in your account? You also have to think about where does this gift fit in your financial goals?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
That
I'll wrap that up. I do want to hear from you though, Precious. Do you have a rich mom poor mom story to share for this week?
so I do, but compared to that one, I kind of don't
Just
even want to
just
tell
get
it.
into it, Precious. Just get into it.
So, okay. So in a nutshell, this one particular this one particular family member asked me for $20. Asked me for $20, right? I think I'm in high school. I'm in high school at this point, and again, I was a nanny at this
Okay.
point. So I I did not have any responsibilities. I think the most responsibility that I had was um, a sewer bill that my grandma had given me so I can feel like I was doing something. And so I didn't have any bills to pay, and I was getting money for the job that I was doing as a nanny. So I had money. People knew that, and somebody came and they asked me for $20, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, okay. I kind of felt proud because this was an older family member, and as a younger person, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to be able to help. Um, I I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't get that money back for a while. I asked, and again, I'm a very shy person, and also I'm a child,
Right.
and this is a much older family member. So
Right.
it took me a lot of courage to ask for that $20. And when they didn't have it, I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. Like, what do you mean you don't? It's $20. What do you mean you don't have it? And so I'm just like, okay, well, maybe next time. And then the next time, they didn't have it. And I think over time, it went from them not having it to them not remembering
Mm.
that they owed me. And eventually, I got upset, but eventually I just had to charge it to the game. Because first of all, it's $20. I wasn't strapped for the cash like that. But also, this is somebody that I love, and I did not want to have that have that resentment towards them. I didn't want to feel that way towards them. I didn't want every time I spoke to them to be hounding them for
Mm.
$20. You know, so eventually I stopped. I didn't see it for a long time. Went to college, came back. I'm grown now, and eventually one day, they just give me a random 20, and I could not I could not believe it. And honestly, it felt so good to get it back. I did not need it, and I didn't I wasn't he did they did not owe me $20 anymore in my mind.
Mm.
And especially because we're family. That person had done a lot for me. What they could for me. You know, if I needed help, yeah. Again, I am younger. And so
Wait,
and
can I
so
ask
I
how much younger? Like, so if you were in high school and this person asked you for $20, how old was this person?
you know what? Honestly, I don't to this day I don't know how much older this person is to me. But
But
I
I'm
want to
saying,
say
was
they
it
were
like an
probably like
auntie,
in their
uncle?
30s. This is like an uncle.
Wow.
Well, I only got one uncle.
Precious.
Okay.
Precious. You ain't gotta no, we keep it anonymous for the podcast.
So this was like I think this person may have been like in their mid 30s.
Okay.
And now that I say that, I cannot imagine going to one of my younger cousins and asking them for $20.
Mm.
For 20 I can't imagine asking them for $20 in the first place. But then when they ask for it back, not like taking them through like around the corner and through the woods to get $20 back. I couldn't imagine doing that to somebody.
Mm,
But the point is, the way that I felt when I got that $20 back, I felt like the relationship was mended and I didn't even know it was broken.
ah,
And so that I think people should also think about that. If they don't, I don't know if they be thinking about that or not.
right.
But just the principle of of maybe the feeling of being taken advantage of. You don't want to make somebody feel like that. Pause. So overall, I think really it was just a principle.
Right. I mean, I would be curious to hear your like what your perspective is culturally in terms of how we were raised, whether or not
Hmm.
how you think people generally think about borrowing and lending money in our culture, like, because in my experience with the larger amounts of money, I can be real and say, like, what you're talking about in terms of somebody dodging you and stuff, for the most part, or I would say, okay, there's only one person I can think of where they are not the most grateful. But for the most part, everybody that I've had to help in such an extreme amount, like in the thousands, they have
Hmm.
been more than like the emotional response in terms of the guilt, in terms of you can just tell that they are not like they are somewhat ashamed that they need this level of help, and they're like super grateful, like everything that you would want someone to feel when you're like lending or giving money is what I usually get. But even
Hmm.
that's why I'm like, even for yours, even though it's $20, it's like maybe it needed to be mended because it was almost like dismissing. $20 was actually a lot to you as a teenager. So being someone who's working as a nanny, it takes you multiple hours to get $20 at that point. And so for someone to
Hmm.
just be like, "Oh, don't ask me about $20," that actually is a big deal for you. And so maybe it was, do you think it was coming from that purview? And have you, when you were growing up, did you see people borrowing money and lending money and doing this kind of thing? Like,
I did. And honestly, with throughout my family, we there was a lot of we had a village.
okay.
So the village that I speak about, not having and missing out on, that was not the case for the adults that I've seen in my family. They were all tight. If you needed something, they were riding.
Okay.
If they didn't have it financially, they were able to offer some kind of help. So everything was really tight. Um, so if somebody needed $20 and they came to me as a kid for $20, I think that was the difference. As a kid, if you are saying that you are borrowing $20 from me, but then when I'm asking for it back, there is no it's almost like it didn't maybe I just didn't know how it worked.
Okay.
I don't know. Or maybe that's grown folks business
Right.
that I didn't know about,
Right.
and maybe they did have their little tiffs. I don't
Oh,
know
that's
because
true.
I didn't hear
That's
about
true.
them.
That's true.
But what I know that what I felt was taken advantage of,
Mm.
and I felt like it was up to me to make myself feel better about the situation, and that's what I did.
I got you. I got you. And as we talk about this, the thing that's occurring to me is, even though I mean we were in the same village, like I also saw a lot of people borrowing money from each other, giving money. It was literally like when people asked you if they could borrow it, they were actually asking you, "Do you have this money in your account?" So that's how I was moving as an adult. But I think for me, what I never saw an example of, and what I'm still learning and kind of putting out there for myself, is I never saw an example of discrepancies in income in a family. So I've seen when everyone's in the struggle together and
Oh.
everyone's borrowing from each other together. But I've never seen when one person kind of makes it out and, like, gets more.
Mm-hmm.
You hear about this, right? Especially in extreme cases like NFL players, et cetera, et cetera. But I personally did not have the experience of actually seeing an example of, well, what happens when one person has a lot more than everybody else? Because then I
Mm-hmm.
think the exchange can get really complicated, and you do need to make new rules. Because if I never need to borrow $20, then is it okay for people to borrow $20 from me? You know what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah.
that's something that maybe we'll get into in another episode, but that came up in my mind. So
Hmm. Okay. So I want to talk about the cultural aspect because like we discussed, we had a family dynamic of everybody kind of being in the same spot financially. And, it was kind of just the resources were just passed around the circle whenever we needed it, right?
yeah,
But it was never a thing. It was never a situation where it was agreed that we were all like pooling funds for someone, and we never. I don't know. Okay, this. Yeah, I don't know. So I think what I'm trying to say is I did not see the the just giving of money to the agreement that we would just be giving money to family.
okay,
Um and that might be because we're all in the same spot, so we don't really have it. But as far as like foreign families with immigrants and everything sending money back to their
yeah,
family, I
that's
don't
something that came up for you.
at all.
Okay,
At all. And honestly, I think that would almost be better because if I'm not expecting to get anything back from my
yeah,
family, if I feel like, yes, it is my obligation, it could be pressure on me, but it doesn't hurt as much when I'm not getting it back and I'm not feeling taken advantage of. So let's get into Get It How You Live, where we hear from real people. And if you're listening right now, please write into Rich Mom Poor Mom to join the conversation. Email us at richmompoormom.pod@gmail.com. So we have 2 letters for today. So let's start off with a letter from Folake. Her letter reads, Dear Rich Mom, Poor Mom, my name is Folake. I live in Oakland, California with my long-term partner. We are engaged to be married and plan to have children someday. My fiance is a software engineer for a tech company, and I lead a nonprofit organization. We have similar salaries, and our household income is about $450,000 per year. The problem is, he is an African man who is the only one in his family to attain such a career and high income. So he is financially supporting a lot of people in his family. A lot. I am also African and support my family, but not at the same scale he does. For example, I provide $500 a month to support my family, and his monthly contributions to his family have been in the thousands. Monthly? I don't know. I don't know if that's what she meant, but if that's what she meant, that's I'm not going to say that's wild because again, cultural differences, but she is also an African woman and finds this a little crazy, right?
mm-hmm.
So, the asks don't stop from his family. And this aside from the monthly contributions? The asks don't stop from his family, and I'm worried about our future together. We both come from humble beginnings and have worked really hard to get to where we are professionally. I feel guilty thinking about setting financial boundaries with my family. But as hard as I've worked to get to where I am, I really don't want to compromise on some of my future goals, like a nice home. and providing a comfortable upbringing for our future kids. Question: how can both of us set stronger boundaries with our families so that we retain more resources to realize our future goals? How would y'all deal with this? This is a lot. So, Jamel, I'm going to ask how this relates to how you live in, especially with
Yeah.
an African husband.
Yeah. So I'll say this, right? So to start it off, I think that me and my husband do not have this kind of arrangement. I would say, ironically, it was a bit flipped. My contributions to my family ended up being much higher than his. But to provide some context for the African side, so I'm going to assume, Falake, your husband or future husband is potentially the oldest boy in the family.
Mm.
And so the age matters, and then also income matters. So he is potentially the oldest. And even if he's not the oldest, he's probably the most financially able. So that really matters a lot in African households and potentially other immigrant households. So if you're with a partner, or you are the partner who is like the eldest sister or the eldest brother, there is an expectation that you have budgeted some amount monthly. And to your question, I do not think this is a typo. I think I have heard of people contributing thousands of dollars a month to their parents or their extended families.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So one of the things that I think does relate to my situation is there does tend to be a bit of a lack of awareness. So you can imagine, um, this person just says African. They did say what country. So let's say it's Nigeria, right? Because that's where my husband is from. Let's say you're someone who's living in Nigeria. There's a big economic issue right now where a lot of people can't find work, even if they're super educated and capable. And so your day to day, where you look around you in your world, and there's a lot of economic strife, there's a lot of people trying to make it, but also the cost of living is relatively affordable compared to the US. The reason why I say that is because, from that person's perspective who's sitting in that world, I actually think there's a bit of a disconnect for them when they think about their family member who's in the US. So a lot of times, that
oh,
person is imagining that my, brother or cousin or uncle who's in the US is just some rich man who's living it up and has access to everything. And this is nothing to him. And so I think that distance, but distance, physical distance, but also economic distance, means that to his family, so to Falake, to your fiance's family, they may have no idea what it's actually like to deal with the day-to-day financial issues we have in the US. Yes, we are very privileged, but also there's a lot of stress. Things cost a lot more. So you said thousands of US dollars a month. That is a significant contribution to be making. They don't have kids. They are not married. We're going to assume they don't own a house. So I think the reason why I relate is because, even though my family is physically not in a different country, I do think physically we are apart. So I live in a different city than most of my family. And when I was in graduate school, I was really far. I was in Boston. And I do think there is this separation, this disconnect that can allow for very skewed perspectives where, and I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like, if I'm sitting in St. Louis and I'm struggling every day, and people don't, I mean, not just my own family, nobody outside of like the graduate program I was in knows what we were doing, right? Even people walking down the street in Cambridge don't know what we're doing in the building. So it's like not unreasonable that someone is thinking, she's at this fancy university. She must be rich. Her and her husband
right.
must be rich. Every time we ask them if we can have $100, they just give it to us. So they must be rich. This must be nothing to them. And so I think
Mhm.
that distance creates that type of unawareness. And I would say what
Yeah.
I've learned, to get back to Falake's letter and the advice, one of the first things I learned was that I needed to take responsibility for bringing my family into my daily life and bridging the connection so they can actually see what this cost me. So they can
Yes.
actually see how hard I'm working. So they can actually
Mhm.
see I haven't slept in 5 days. My
Mhm.
husband is not taking his PTO. Like that kind of thing. Like my husband is working, he's waking up at 4 a.m. to get the kids ready so that he can be at work at 7, right? Like we're working, we're pushing ourselves every single day to the max.
Mhm.
And they can't see that. And so you have to show them
Mhm.
that. And sometimes it feels almost like in insensitive for me to talk to my family about my struggles because it's so different. But I think Falake, you have to find a way for you and your fiance to communicate. If your fiance is a software engineer in tech, I work in tech. The pressure is insane right now. The layoffs in tech, the layoff pressure. I went to a meeting where everybody who not everybody, but 3 guys who had babies in the last year took like 1 month of their paternity leave and came right back. People who were on PTO clocking in, checking their email, logging in, being available if you needed help with your code. There is a lot of pressure right now. And it's high stakes. It's basically up or out. People are saying, hey, if you can't prove yourself right now, you can go. If
Wow.
your fiance is under that kind of pressure, you're running an entire nonprofit organization. Nonprofits have been under attack. Like a lot is happening in the world. I would say the very first thing, it sounds so simple, but before you can even set boundaries, you need to open yourself up and start to give your family a view into your everyday life. Let them see how much it actually costs you to give thousands. Once you do that, the second thing I think you need to do is set some goals between you and your fiance. It's very easy, like I said, with what I gave. It's very easy when you just got money sitting in your account. If somebody call you and say you got $4,000, yeah, I got it. That's very easy to do if it's just sitting there. If you set
Mhm.
even some simple goals, one goal, our wedding. We're going to have a wedding fund, we're going to have a house fund, and we're going to have an emergency fund for our cars and etc. Now, when you look at your account and you see, wait, my house fund only has $1,000 in it. So when you call me and ask me if I got $1,000, I actually don't because I'm low. I'm down. My goals are not reached. So I think
Mhm.
also set some goals together and then stick to them and prioritize them. Maybe a simple rule is we don't give money outside of the household if our goals are not met.
I like that one.
That could work, right? And I think the third thing is you are going to have a very specific conversation with your fiance about future planning and about your position. So even if you make $450,000 a year, if you both come from humble beginnings, you're not going to have someone gifting you a down payment on a house. And you said you live in California. So we need to start actually writing down how much is it actually going to cost you to own a house in California if that's the goal. How much is it going to cost you to have a wedding? How much if like all this, if you're having a wedding in the US, his whole family might be expecting for y'all to fly them in. So let's start putting
Oh.
money towards those things. And then as a unit, when you talk to people, it doesn't have to be I think one thing that can be hard to set boundaries is you could feel like every time they call me, I have to say, hey, look at all this stuff me and my family got. No. What you can say is, I understand your situation. And you can also develop a relationship with people where they're able to share their daily life with you and you do not take it as I need to jump in and save them.
Right.
So I think you and I have this, Precious, we've done this well, where you calling me and telling me, man, I'm in this situation and I'm managing this financial situation. I had to learn was not you asking me for money. You were just talking about your life. And there has to be
Mhm.
space for both of us to do that without one of us jumping in and being like, oh, because some of it comes from guilt. I could feel so guilty about my privilege that anytime anyone mentions any struggle to me, I hop in and offer to fix it. And that's that. The solution to that is me processing my own guilt.
Yeah. And then I think there's also guilt on the other side, because when you are talking to someone and you're venting to someone and they're saying, "Oh, okay, well, here's what you should do," or here's like, "Do you need me to do this?" And then it's like, "Oh, shoot, I don't want them to feel like that all the time. Should I stop venting?
Mm,
Should I stop talking to people about my problems? Am I a negative person?"
mm.
You know? So I think I think that is a healthy viewpoint from both sides. And I think that viewpoint is important, because
Yeah.
if it's not there, then it's just like one person or the other might feel free reign
Yeah. And
to just take,
yeah,
or
yeah. And I think,
yeah,
as we're talking, I'm like, there is a lot of responsibility on the part of the people who are on the higher earning side to be thoughtful and empathetic, right? We've all heard stories of people being like super insensitive. Like you talking to a friend who can't pay their rent, and then you start talking about, oh, I don't know which Gucci bag to buy. There are levels to this, okay?
read the
You know
room.
what I'm saying?
This,
So I'm not
yes.
saying that all your problems as someone who is higher earning deserve attention. What I'm saying is you
Mm,
do have to find a way to give people insight into your daily life,
yeah.
specifically so that they can see how the value of money and how hard you work while
Mm,
still somehow being empathetic, right? So even I'm thinking of like, I mentioned it earlier, but it just occurred to me because we're from St. Louis and it's right across the bridge from East St. Louis. And there have been a number of high performing athletes who have made it out and gone and made a lot of money, and I'm just imagining they have to deal with this too. And there is a sensitivity to it, right? And the one thing that they have to deal with that I would say people like me don't is their salary or their like money is public. You can just Google how much money they make, right? So this next piece of advice is maybe not apply to them. We can talk about that scenario, but I think the last thing I'll say for Falake is most people don't really need to know how much money you make, and that's going to be between you and your fiance, and keeping that between y'all is really important, because a lot of people are not going to know how to process that number, and it may sound like more if we don't know how much the cost of living in California is.
Right.
So that's the last thing I'll say on that one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's very good. So let's go to Gigi's letter. She says, "Dear Rich Mom, Poor Mom, my name is Gigi. My son is 7 years old. I live in Houston working as a dancer in adult clubs. It's a really fast life, and the fast money is almost addicting. I have nights where I make over 1,000 in one night, but other nights it's more regular where I make a couple $100. When I have a big night, I don't really need to work again. I don't really need to work again for a while. I don't really work on a regular schedule. It's kind of like I work when I want to work. When I file my taxes, I make good money, anywhere from 50,000 to $150,000 for the year. Oh, that's nice. It all just depends. A lot of my friends know I make good money, so when they get behind on rent or are in a situation, I'm in a bind, Nate. They ask me to borrow money. I help when I can, but sometimes it's a lot, and I'm not really saving much these days. I love my girls and try to be a great friend since I do make good money. Question: when is it okay to say no when people ask to borrow? Especially when it's a friend who I know is just not bringing in as much as me. I feel guilty. What do y'all think?
Yeah, what do you think, Precious?
Okay, so the question is, when is it okay to say no when people ask to borrow? Right off top, anytime. Anytime, because you are going to work, you're making your money, and the simple answer is, it's your money, you don't have to give it out. Yada yada yada. Okay. The hard part is, of course, These are your friends. You don't want to see your friends struggling, but also you might have some extra money just laying around. Maybe you don't have a goal for it,
Yeah.
maybe you do, but you feel like you have it available at that time to help that friend, so that that friend is not is not struggling,
Right.
when you know that you can help it, especially when you kind of make your own schedule. You said that you can make anywhere from 50,000
Yeah.
to $150,000 on either end. That's good income
Mm.
to me. You have a 7-year-old son, okay, and then you live in Houston. I don't know how much Houston is.
It's
I know
yeah.
that here in St. Louis, $50,000 is a good wage. I don't know how much it would be in Houston, but I do know that you said that you pretty much work when you want to. So if you need it, you will just work more. So I imagine it might be a little harder on your conscience if you know that you can help your friend out of a bind
Right.
and then just go work it off the next night.
Yeah. But here's the reason why I like this letter, Gigi. Partially because of the topic this week and also because of the previous letters. So we just heard from a household income of around 450,000. And now
Mm-hmm.
we're hearing from someone who is like sometimes making $50,000 a year. And they're struggling with similar things. Now, I'm going to assume Gigi is coming from more of an American perspective because she didn't really mention any cultural considerations. But I think what is cool to highlight here is that both Gigi and Falake are asking kind of similar questions around how to say no, how to set boundaries, and struggling with loving people and wanting to help people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a really cool uh, similarity between across tax brackets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, especially I think what's probably more relevant than the income that they make in this situation is more the cultural expectation. So Gigi is talking about letting her friends borrow money and being in a world where she is the higher earning person. So even if her income might be lower on some sort of statistical scale, in her world, she's the one making money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that's a cool thing to highlight, this connection.
Yeah, the fact that it doesn't really matter how much money you're making, there might be a struggle with how you are managing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, when is it okay to say no? I, the reality of this situation is these friends are grown.
Yeah.
And it seems like this is a pattern.
Mm.
And if you don't mind living this way, where you know that your friends don't make as much as you, and you know that at some point you're going to have to bail them out again
Mm.
because they just can't seem to get out of a rut. If you don't mind that, and some people don't mind that. Some people are just like, I love my girl so much. I love my friend so much. Like I love the life that I live and I have the extra fun, so I'm going to give it to them. But it sounds like you tired of doing it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's definitely time for
Yeah.
you to have that conversation with
Yeah.
them and try to let them know that in one way or another you are tired of doing this.
Yeah.
You have higher expectations for them, which is okay.
Mm.
Or at the very least, hey, I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have higher expectations from you. I'm not trying to change anything about you. I love our relationship.
Right.
However, I am not comfortable doing this anymore.
Yes.
And if you cannot have that kind of conversation without it going left, then that maybe says something about the friendship.
Mm.
Hopefully it'll push them in the right direction to find another way out, because surely you can't be
The only way.
the only way, right?
I mean, one way to do it is kind of the same advice I gave to Falake, which is you have a 7-year-old son. So you asked us what we think, so I'm gonna give you some sort of unsolicited advice, but I have a question in terms of, are there additional things that you could be paying for your son that you're not right now? Additional
Okay.
extracurricular activities. Does your son have a college fund? The cool thing about 529 accounts, which is one of the U.S. options for pre-tax savings, is you can use it for a lot of different things. You can use it for trade school. You can use it for graduate school. Your kid could use this for their living expenses while they're in school. So if they get a scholarship, but they need an apartment, they could use it. So it's definitely worth thinking about, okay, am I setting my son up? Do you have life insurance? You said you work as a dancer, and I think they work more as consultants. Like they're not necessarily salaried employees with benefits. Does your son have the health care that you would like? So I would start asking myself those questions, set a couple of very simple goals. I want to say it can be super simple. Let's say 1,000. I want to have $1,000 in a college fund for my son. I want to have $1,000 in a 401k for myself, and I want to have $1,000 in an account so that if my son wants to go on this trip to visit the aquarium in Atlanta, he can go. And once you have these goals, the conversation could be less awkward because you might just start talking to your friends about, hey y'all, I'm about to start on a couple financial goals. It's 2026, right? Hey, I am now thinking I'm about to start a college fund. I'm gonna start doing a lot of these things for my kid, which means I'm gonna have a lot less money on hand. It may be as passive as that. You may not even have to address it directly. So then if your friend call you next month, hey, do you have, you can be like, remember I told you I'm starting these goals? I really ain't got it because it already went into the account. And then but you can still provide emotional support. You can be like, girl, for real, I'm so sorry. What you gonna do? You can help brainstorm. But if it's not possible, because some people are real defensive, especially if you have already a pattern of giving to them, it's kind of, I'm not trying to be on their side, but it's kind of a human instinct that if someone introduces a drastic change in a relationship, people gonna have a reaction to that. And I don't think that
Yeah.
necessarily
Oh, you
means,
switching up.
what you say?
Like, oh, you switching up.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think that means, oh, that friend is not worth having. They only like you because you want money. I think it's more complicated. People can just have a very natural reaction like, whoa, this was my girl who used to give me money all the time. Now we switching it up. Give them time to process, and then give your relationship some transition time. Because they're in this habit of calling you and asking you for help. They're going to call you again, and don't take it personally. Just give it some time to transition. Now, if you're giving it a reasonable amount of time to transition and that person is starting to get hostile towards you, like, oh, you got it, da da da, because people will do that, then I think it's worth revisiting the relationship altogether. But these people sound like they love you, you love them. I'm going to guarantee you that if y'all really do have a lot of love, they will get through that transition, which might be hard, but the relationship can move forward in a new way.
I really like that. I really like that. It takes a lot of guilt. It can take a lot of guilt off of you, for one. And then two, it makes you a lot more productive. So I like it. Okay, so we need your help, y'all. For our Get It How You Live segment, please send us an email and tell us how you live it. Make sure to include your individual and household income, and we'll make sure to give you a fake name unless you specify not to. Then we may read the letter out loud on the show. If you need some inspo, here are some upcoming topics. Getting through the newborn stage with your marriage intact, making the most of maternity leave, and investing and saving while paying for childcare. All right, before we close out, let's take a moment for gratitude. Jamelle, what are you grateful for this week?
I personally, I think just because of the conversation, I think I'm really so grateful for my family. I think we be having a good time, and there's so much love, and we got into a lot of the complicated nuances, but there's so much love and so much support. And I'm extending some gratitude to my family this week. What about you, Precious? What are you grateful for? That $20.
I'm grateful for. What am I grateful for this week? I'm grateful for a lot of things, but this week, I'm grateful for growth. Because for someone like me who internalizes everything, it is easy to internalize and personalize a lot of the hardships of other people and how that affects you. And I am grateful that I have found a way to to not let that affect me anymore, because I think it has helped me in my relationships. I don't know how far I have gone with it. Yeah, I'm grateful for sanity.
I love that. No, that's beautiful. Grateful for growth. Okay.
Yeah, grateful for growth. Thank y'all for listening to Rich Mom, Poor Mom. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it so they know they're not alone. Please show us some love by leaving a review and subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And leave a comment or send an email to keep the conversation going. We'll see you next time on Rich Mom, Poor Mom.